Yo, hello. The new Series 3 rule set has been announced. They are now calling them regulations because of, I imagine, some confusion that happened because of like series to seasons, and it gets that kind of got messed up. I still prefer calling it series, so I'm probably going to end up accidentally just calling it series anyways. And I'll refer to the title of this video, probably just call it series as well. With this little indent for regulations. But yeah. Basically though, the new ruin Pokemon Wo-Chien, Chi-Yu, Chien-Pao, Ting-Lu are now legal. And there's a few interesting things I want to talk about regarding this, because these Pokemon are some of really the strongest that we have, and it's not really comparable because each of them have this beads ability that allows it to help itself by debuffing a stat or debuffing an opponent's stat, but they also have this interesting counterbalance where it debuffs your partner as well. Though generally this isn't the most problematic, as you can tend to manipulate and take advantage of your situation well, depending on the Pokemon you're using. Notably, for example, with Ting-Lu, since it's a mon that lowers special attack, right? You can put it next to a mon that is a physical attacker, and same with Wo-Chien. This applies pretty well to make these mons a bit more playable. And for the Chi-Yu and Chien-Pao, where they lower defenses, of course, no matter what Pokemon you put next to that, it's still gonna take a big hit, right? A much bigger hit than normal. But you can mitigate this by playing more offensively. With Chi-Yu, you can use mons like Flutter, Bundle, these very fast Pokemon that hit specially. And they're going to be doing a lot of extra damage. This for free. And then with Chien-Pao, you can use a lot of powerful priority users like Dragonite, Scizor, Palafin. There's a lot of really strong priority options to take advantage of in that sense. I do want to talk about each of the individual ones. Of course, Chien-Pao plus Palafin, great kind of core because of the simpleness of Jet Punch, 160 attack, off of a defense drop. Essentially allows you to play Palafin outside of rain and still get similar impact to a Palafin in rain, thanks to Chien-Pao's Sword of Ruin ability. And this can instantly just allow your Palafin to do pretty massive damage, to be honest. And that damage really will this kind of take over a game under the right circumstances. And Dragonite's another interesting one, as this is a mod that was used in combination with Chien-Pao a lot during the early series, where you would essentially have E-Speed, Choice Band, and thanks to the Chien-Pao drop as well, plus your Choice Band, plus your Terra Normal, there's a lot of stuff you would just be KOing with E-Speed outright. And that's something that's inherently very scary to deal with, as there's not much you can really do to stop him on that this KOs you before you can attack, and isn't even using Helping Hand or anything, and you still have a Chien-Pao attacking next to it too, making this combination inherently very strong. Chien-Pao can also use Ice Spinner to remove stuff like Psychic Terrain that would block your E-Speed. So there's a lot of very good inherent offensive synergy here. Of course, defensively it has some lacking points with Fairy weakness, Fighting weakness when it terras. But overall, still a very strong concept. And also Chien-Pao, as being a dark type, the one immunity to E-Speed, right? This are dark type, so you just have knockoff. Oh, wait, you don't knockoff, I forgot. You have Sucker Punch and Crunch, where you can just use that to take down instead. You also have Sacred Sword for steel types, which make it so no matter what's on the field, you're still going to have a way to hit it, which is overall pretty good. And then for Chi-Yu, of course, in general, Chi-Yu, you want it with big special attackers, Flutter Mane Bundle are both like two of the strongest special attacker combinations right now. And this I just decided to list both because, well, this makes sense. Of course, Chiyu, and you can just really just take a very big hit as well. There aren't nearly as many like good special attackers for the Chiyu to take advantage of, but mons like Goldango, mons like Lamora are some of the more interesting ones. Gengar is also a little interesting in some senses too, though Gengar gets a bit outclassed by Flutter, so you know it's not too worth considering. And there's also Espathra. Espathra is actually a bit interesting in this because you can just run a special core around Espathra Chiyu. Espathra can become faster than your Chiyu. You quick Lumina Crash, and then you're going to KO everything with your Chiyu. And Espathra can also take advantage of a bunch of special mons together. And you can use like Terra Fairy as well, so you can get out of your Psychic type. And importantly, hit Pokemon like Chien-Pao and become more of a threat against these opposing dark types that go around. So that's another interesting option as well. And yeah, I also have Goldango listed. Because Goldango, you can run Scarf and run it as a surprising set. Spec set doing even more damage for free. Like, this overall pretty good, pretty self-explanatory. And then we get into the more defensive Ruin Pokemon. And there's a simple concept I'll talk about with like Tinglu first. And that, because of how this like the inherent defensive nature, right? Because this vessel is going to boost like, lower opponent's special attack. This is going to allow you to run like a very bulky Tinglu. You can run like Snarl, AV, Ruination, and yeah, all the Pokemon have Nature's Madness, which lowers half health on hit, which is pretty important. So you can run something like this if you wanted. This play like super defensive. And running it next to Bulk Up Pokemon's nice because you can just set up Bulk Up, and your vulnerability in the special defense stat won't matter as much when you're next to a mon like Tinglu. So that is a pretty valid way to just work around that. Tinglu is also very effective with screens. That's something I didn't list before. So like Grimmsnarl, Klefki, Sableye, all these screens users are pretty good with Mr. Tinglu. Yeah, I also have Scarlet listed for the similar reason as Annihilate. You get this from Bulk Up, then you get a higher special defense stat naturally thanks to Tinglu to be next to you. And Tinglu also allows you to stay in better against like Chiyu and ones like Flutter too, which is pretty nice to have. And then Wo-Chien can also do that concept, though it's a bit harder because, as I said earlier when we were talking about Chiyu, the special attack Pokemon in this meta that you want to focus around aren't necessarily as great at playing this kind of defensive mindset with Wo-Chien. But there are some benefits. Like mons like Sylveon, for example, have absurd high Spadef. Technically, you could go as far as running like bulky Flutter with Wo-Chien too, and you can take advantage of it that way. Sylveon's nice in that regard as well. Mons like Salamence are kinda okay with it, because you can run like Draco instead. So there's that. There's that. Also, mons like Goldango are decently cool, because Goldango, of course, special attacker. But I think probably the most notable Wo-Chien thing is just running it like Ferrothorn, essentially, and putting it in Rain, where you just run this very bulky Pokemon that's just obscenely hard to KO with like Terra Steel or even Terra Poison, honestly. And with this, you just make your Pokemon decently good, and you can just sit there for a while because you're in Rain. So this concept works out pretty well for Wo-Chien overall. And finally, I can talk about some of the Pokemon I think are a bit better in this metagame that weren't quite great before. The greatest Pokemon here, of course, being Glimmora, but I wanted to talk about in Dragonite, right? We already talked about Dragonite, so I'll just delete it, but Glamora notably has one big benefit now in this metagame, and that's the ability to like stand up to like Qianpao Dragonite. It can kind of stand up to Chi-Yu Flutter as well. Because if Chi-Yu Flutter leads on Glamora with like an Assault Fest, Glamora can live the double up between a Chi-Yu and a Flutter main, and that's something that makes it like pretty valuable to have overall. And then similarly here, it can actually live the E-Speed from Terra Flying Dragonite, and it can also take Terra Flying sets pretty well as well, that we're starting to see a fair bit. So these sets kind of just don't like Glamora. And Qianpao can't really deal with Glamora either, because if it hits it, you just get the Toxic Debris. So overall, Glamora is a Pokemon that gets a fair bit better. And then when it comes to these priority mons, right, like Scizor, Breloom can take advantage of Qianpao pretty well. Both threatening an Oko on Qianpao. Scizor also threatens an Oko on Flutter. But Scizor actually's real benefit here is Qianpao as a partner. Because Qianpao is a partner allows Scizor to finally like get over the hump and start doing real damage. While it's rather unpunished comparatively, because it already has a high base defense stat. So you're not going to take as much of a loss on your own self-reduction, and you can get like the priority power of Bullet Punch. You can get like a nice little X Scissor off as well, making it a pretty strong combination overall. And then Breloom is good for similar reasons, where you have like Mach Punch. And Mach Punch just allows you to threaten KOs on Chi-Yu, Qianpao, and that's just enough to really make that Pokemon just a fair bit better. And then a more interesting Pokemon to talk about is actually Palmut. And this is always going to be a theory I have with what makes Palmut actually good. I think Palmut's a Pokemon that inherently will have higher value when the meta gets stronger. And when you have mons like Chi-Yu in the metagame and Qianpao, the metagame is instantly this taken a turn to be a lot more offensive. And to that point, Palmut does become a bit better as a result. So that will be something rather important to keep in mind of. And I can also run like Iron Fist Mach Punch too to help eliminate Qianpao and Chi-Yu. So overall, the utility of Palmut is a bit more valuable. Expect Palmut to not be the highest usage, but overall it'll keep getting better over time as we get more Pokemon release. And if we get into like restricted metagame, right, where we have Miraidon, Kyogres, Cali Shadows, that's really going to be the format where a mon like Palmut becomes its best, especially with like Calyrex. Calyrex Shadow Palmut is actually like a really nice core to have around for sure. And yeah, that's something also pretty interesting to take in regard of. Tinkaton also becomes a bit better, because importantly, Tinkaton has kind of like great utility here, because it can stand in front of Qianpao Dragonite pretty easily, thanks to its Steel Fairy typing. It resists the E-Speed, resists Ice Dark, and also resists like Terra Flying too. It can also stand in front of Flutter. Of course, it can't stand in front of the Chi-Yu part of it things. But overall, that still does a better Pokemon in my eyes than it was before. And that's really all we're talking about here. There's plenty of Pokemon that will be viable before, like your Palafins, your Dozos, like all those Pokemon are still like going to be viable. But I kind of wanted to talk about mons I think are like fundamentally more interesting now that this format has released for the next month. And we're gonna have some like tours on Limitless for this format. And presumably the first regionals is going to be the Fort Wayne Regional Championships. So it'll be interesting to on April 1st. We haven't had an official announcement whether that will be Series 3. But considering the date of when Series 3 is launched, that is really the assumption. So hopefully we'll get some good news on that. And the rule set will go till June 30th. So it should be able to get Milwaukee. It should be able to get all the events up until the North American International Championships. So that's something interesting to keep in regard as well, as really, if you don't have an event this month, this is probably the format you need to look at. And of course, it's important to say, since we're talking about this as well, if you want to find tournaments For Series 3, you can go to play.limitless.com, and that will get you... And this will help you get some Series 3 tournaments. Of course, there's not really any that have been announced yet, considering the rule set was just announced like 2 hours ago, right? Yeah, it didn't announce. Sad. No. I'm kind of curious. Did anyone announce? No, no, no. Oh, someone did. So I imagine this is going to be Series 3. But, we'll get more Series 3 tournaments later, because of course, as I said, this was announced 2 hours ago. A final thing for this video, I will actually check some of the Pokemon regionals, just so you guys get an idea of how long this format will be released, right? Especially for that. Yeah, the Pokemon regionals. So we're gonna start getting this on past March. So Fort Wayne, even though it says March 31st, that is the Friday of the event. So I would assume Fort Wayne will actually be Series 3 because April 1st, April is when the format begins. At least that's my hope. But yeah, the format will continue up until Portland. We get Connecticut, Milwaukee, Fresno. All of that should be under Series 3. And for Europe, Malmo will be under that format as well. And then with our internets. Ooh, this is a big one actually. Unknown whether we'll get Series 3 for NAIC or if it's going to be a brand new format day one. Because the June 30th stipulation here. Because it ends through June 30th. So that could be a potentially interesting thing to keep in mind. That we'll probably get a brand new format for the North American International Championships and for Fort Wayne Regionals. Both of those will be day one. So do make sure you like keep in mind to look at Limitless and try to keep yourself updated as much as possible. Because this is really the best tool to get in tournament games and just get a bunch of practice in. I do personally plan on streaming the new format a bit more as we get into it this next couple weeks, because of course like I only have Fort Wayne Regionals, and if I consider Fort Wayne Regionals as being under this format, then you know it's probably good to practice it. Hopefully we'll get an announcement on like Fort Wayne specifically soon. Really unsure whether we will be or not. It should be in my eyes, and I really hope it is. But yeah, overall though, that's all I have to talk about for this video. Let me know what you guys think is going to be better in Series 3 or Regulations 3. And what Pokemon do you think are generally going to be pretty interesting. I think there's a pretty wide amount of stuff that is decently cool. Though, I think Chi-Yu is a problem. I think Chi-Yu is inherently a bit of a problem. Same with Chien-Pao. So I do think the meta will be a bit more offensive than it was before. Though there's also like Tinglu, Ape, Grim. So this is a bit interesting. I don't really... Also another thing, like what one you expect to be best. I think it's going to be like Chi-Yu, Chien-Pao everywhere. Then occasional like bulky Tinglu teams. And like Wo-Chien's going to be like nowhere. That's at least my expectation. Though it'll be interesting to see how the format actually works out. And yeah, that's it for this video today. Later.